Sup y'all, it's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today we're going to look at the Ogron twins and the Highmaul raid. Now, they were doing some raid testing the other day. I figured I'd come and get in on it with the guild divinity, so shout out to my boys, and they let me come in and do this raid with them, and I'd say it went pretty well. We got a pretty good strat worked out. Basically, the gist of the fight is there's two guys, and you've got to kill them at pretty much the same time. That aggressive disposition, what that is that's a debuff, and the farther away from each other they are, that debuff can turn orange and it can turn red. Think of Monk's Stagger, and it scales, and so the farther away from each other they are, the more damage they do. It's a pretty simple mechanic, and honestly it's not really that big of a deal. It is actually not good to tank them next to each other though. Now, we tried a bunch of different stuff, and I'm going to show you guys what is about 3 or 4 different attempts. And this is one of our earlier attempts, and this one went really bad. You guys can see me. I get hit by all kinds of fire. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, and I think I was the first person to die. I just completely went full retard on this and died so fast. I think I was the first one dead too. I don't really remember though. Yep, I'm dead. Look at me. I'm a fucking idiot. So anyway, I want to show you guys the fire though. Basically, the fire, they put down their weapons. They throw down their weapons on the ground, and fire comes out of their weapons. The fire is kind of unpredictable, but the way that we handled it is we had, what was his name, Feros or whatever? Sorry, I can't understand his, I can't pronounce his name. Not Pol, but Fenros, I think. We had him in the corner. That was what we ended up doing. So all the fire would end up in the corner, and he threw his weapon in the corner. What some people were doing to exploit the fight is that they were putting him and having him throw his axe through like the little wall that's behind them, and it'll bug out the axe. I pretty much would assume that that's not going to make it on the live, but if it does, that's something you can do too if you're a scumbag. Now, as you can see here, their debuffs are orange, and that's what I was talking about earlier about them doing more damage. Now, Feros, he's the real deadly one. Now, what we kind of tried to do is that we'd use the same strategy that people would use on, what's that fight in TOT, Twin Consorts, where whenever, on phase 1, whenever the fire one would come out, everybody would focus on her, and so we kind of got them into a rotation of different abilities. Now, Quake is just a general AoE damage to the raid, not really a big deal. And usually, like, what we were going to do is we were going to get him in the corner so we could avoid the fire, and pretty much have all the melee on Pol, and then have everybody else on Feros, and then have everybody switch over to Feros. And geez, I still can't remember his name. Femos. Sorry, I've been Femos. And because Femos is definitely, I'm just gonna call him Femos actually. Because Femos is very melee unfriendly. Whereas Pol doesn't really do much of anything against melee. He does do a shield charge, and he does a shield charge to the farthest away person. And so you want to have that person not be your, not be your tank. And the reason for that is you get a whirlwind debuff, and that whirlwind debuff is going to increase the damage you take from shield charge, or whatever he does, what Pol does when he charges the farthest away person. And so if it goes to your tank, and your tank has a shield charge buff, or sorry, the whirlwind buff, it's going to one-shot your tank and kill your tank. They also do a ground, or a ceiling shatter, as you can see here. That's pretty hard to avoid. It goes in 3, and so it is a little easier to avoid the first ones, but the last one is pretty much unavoidable. And there's the Quake. This is the real damage phase here, where you want to use your throughput cooldowns. And that's pretty much what we were doing. We had people rotating different cooldowns just with the fire debuff. And the way the fire works, by the way, is they're pretty much expecting you to get hit by it, because the fire moves erratically, and it's hard to really predict where it's going to go, which is why I keep getting hit by it. It's hard to really understand where it will be. And so it puts a debuff on you, and if you get hit by it again, it puts another debuff on you. It functions the same way as Superheated does on Siegecrafter, and it's very simple. And so after he does the whirlwind, what we do is we bring them together here, and we try and cleave them down, and this is the point where melee all get on Femos, and we do as much damage as we can to him, because for all the rest of the time, we're all on pull. And as soon as he does that roar there, we pull him back, and the roar makes everybody take more increased damage. As you can see, that's the debuff that looks like Battle Shout, and it's split between different people in the raid, or at least that's how I think it functioned for us. And so whenever there are less people there, the damage debuff is higher, and if there's only one person, I think that person takes 300% extra damage. But again, don't quote me on that, I'm not entirely sure, but that's what it seemed like to me. This is testing, and we only really got an hour of it, and some of it was spent waiting for disconnects, and so we didn't really get a whole lot of time to really practice a lot, but as I said before, we did get a pretty decent strategy, and so I'll probably try and show you guys that, and I don't know if this will be a strategy that we'll use going into live, I have no idea, but at the same time, it probably will work pretty well. And again, for the whirlwind, you definitely want to be out of that as melee, because it's extra damage that you don't want to take. Now, later on, probably you'll be able to sit in it with a cooldown. It's definitely not, I guess you could say, like unthinkable. It's just whenever you do that, you have to be extra careful from shield charge, because shield charge will one-shot you at that point, because you'll have so many stacks of the whirlwind debuff, and again, the whirlwind debuff makes you take extra damage from shield charge. And so, it's a very complicated thing. See, there's shield charge. I'm dead because I'm fucking stupid, and I got all the debuffs. As you saw there, he hit me for 390k, and so that's an instant one shot. I think my health on here was like 220k or 240k. So it's not even. It would have been 100 to 0 one shot, even if I probably had died with a sword up even. And so this is a pretty hard fight. We did Gruul, and we did the Butcher too. And by we, I mean I did the Butcher and they did Gruul, because I couldn't log in. But either way, it was pretty. It was a lot harder than both of those. And obviously, I watched videos on Gruul, and I did the Butcher. The Butcher was extremely easy. Butcher, for comparison, probably had about as much health as one of these mobs, and a lot of people were confused as to whether these mobs shared health. And we kind of determined that they were not supposed to share health, and the reason for that is because they gained a debuff whenever the other one died, and if they were supposed to share health, that wouldn't be in there, because they would be intended to die at the same time. And so here, I think this is one of the better attempts that we had. If I'm playing badly, just excuse that. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was kind of having bad frame rate issues, and so it kind of explains it. But oh no, I didn't get hit by that shield charge. That's how you avoid shield charge, though, by the way. You just don't stand in front of it. He looks at where he's going to charge, then he charges there. It's not that hard. It's not actually hard at all. And so there's really no reason to ever get hit by that, unless it's like your first time doing it. And again, after what's called Phemos casts Whirlwind, we group them up together until he casts this other shout, and I forgot what it's called. I'll tell you guys in just a second whenever he casts it. And that gives me a good chance. Was it Terrifying Roar or Enfeebling Roar? Something like that. And that's, again, the damage debuff that makes everybody take damage. And so there are a couple of different ways that you can handle this. We were also thinking about having a third tank handle the Enfeebling Roar, so we didn't have to make everybody take damage from it. But we decided against that. And there's the ground, or the ceiling, falling down again. And so you can kind of see how that is. I don't really think that this fight is very hard. One of the main things that's, I guess you could say, hard about this fight is that it's long. It does take kind of a long time, but it's very predictable. Everything happens the exact same order, pretty much. I think there's one time where two abilities overlap, and I don't even remember which ones they are. I think it's the fire and the stomp, or it might be the shield, or sorry, the ceiling shatter and the fire, and so it can get a little rough, but other than that, it's really not too much of an issue. And again, so just to recap, so you guys can kind of see what's going on here, we're having all the melee on the black one, which is Pole, and we have all the casters pretty much on Phemos and multi-dotting, and that's why my damage is not higher right now, is because they're able to multi-dot, like the Moonkin. Obviously, Moonkin's like awesome at multi-dotting. See, that was a mistake on my part, by the way, because I stood in that. Just wanted to point that out. And anyway, so it's kind of shitty for melee, but what you want to try and do if you're melee, if you're doing this fight, is that you just pretty much want to save all your cooldowns, and like I save like Ravager and everything like that, because they basically come together at about every minute. And so it lines up really well with Ravager, and same with Sweeping Strikes and all that other stuff. And the rest of the time you want to focus pretty much on single target DPS. But if you're trying to decide whether you should spec into AoE or single target, depending on how much DPS you lose in single target, this is more or less a single target fight. As you see here, the fire is a lot less of an issue now that we have him in the corner there, right in that little cubby hole, and there's a fire thing. I almost stood in that. Excuse me. And but I didn't, luckily. Whenever it leaves that aftershock thing, I don't really think it does too much damage, but I think it does damage for like 1 second afterwards. And so you want to pay attention to that too. As far as I know, there's no real tank swap mechanic, and so that makes it pretty easy for the tanks. And this here, as I said before, as far as I know, you can't really get out of that. As you can see, pretty much everybody took damage. And it's also a very high, it's a very low damage mechanic because so many people are intended to be getting hit by it. And again, I think, I just got, that's getting hit by shield charge whenever you don't have the debuff. And as you guys saw earlier, the debuff one-shot me, and here it didn't really do much of anything. Honestly, it was not even a big deal. It hit me for 40,000 damage, and because there's no other real damage going out, it really didn't matter. However, it did put that wound on me, and that is a small dot, but again, it's not really the end of the world. Now here we had a weapon a little bit further out, and we didn't really want it to be there, and so this is kind of like not really a good thing, but we were able to pretty much manage it. As long as they're not in the middle of the raid, it's not really that big of a deal. And you want to kill them again right about the same time, and you also don't want to kill them at the same time they're doing the stomp or the roar or anything, any kind of AoE damage, because whenever they gain the buff, the aggressive thing, whenever one of them dies, they just go absolutely fucking berserk, and they'll probably one-shot everybody in your raid. And so if you are going to do that, you definitely want to make sure that you kill Themos first, because Pole is a lot less deadly. And so you want to paying attention to that. And other than that, this is a pretty simple fight. The one thing that I like about this fight is it's very predictable. Everything happens at pretty much the same order, and so if you have a good group that's good at executing mechanics and basically playing like robots, you're going to be able to kill this fight without much trouble. Like, we went in there, I think we're scaled to 655, and it took us about, I think, 3 or 4 tries to kill the boss, and this is again on normal mode difficulty, which is, it's flex from 10 to 30 players, and so, no, it's actually technically heroic, but as far, I think it's heroic, I'm not entirely sure, so I apologize if I'm wrong there, but so this is not the hardest, this is not mythic, is what I'm saying. So I don't know what mythic will do. I don't know if these firewalls will one-shot you. I really fucking hope not, because they're kind of deadly. And as you can see, I'm pretty far away from that, and I still got hit by it. And so that leads me to believe that either the graphic is a lot larger than it is, or it's meant to target everybody in the raid. Now, as you can see here, we just had 2 people die. I think we had a tank die too. And so it did not really turn out as well as we thought it would. But no, that was Incarnate, I think, who died. And so, yeah, we were able to kind of power through this anyway. And we were going to kill it, but we didn't. Or maybe we did. I honestly don't even fucking remember. I mean, you guys will see here in a second. We still had 2 tanks, and DK tanks right now are just godly. Like, they're almost doing as much healing as the people in the raid. Or sorry, not the people in the raid, the healers in the raid. And so it was pretty easy for the DKs to stay alive, and druids are also very good. So we're still in kind of a good spot, but it was a hard fight. I think it's probably going to be like one of those fights where it's like, this is the hard fight. This is the first hard fight of the instance. You know what I mean? And so like that's kind of what. Yeah, right here, I think is where things kind of fall apart. Yeah, people start dying here. I could have probably used a cooldown. Yeah, I probably could use a cooldown and avoided that. yeah, so I mean that kind of sucks. And pulverize is the thing where the ground falls down. And so anyway, this is the point where I figured, hey man, I might take a look at this dungeon journal, figure out how to actually do this fight. And there you can see all the different abilities, and obviously you guys can look at that on anywhere, like on Wowhead or whatever. So I'm not going to go over every single thing. Yeah, I got killed by that, so I wanted to look that up, and I found out that is the ceiling crash. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. We did do a couple other attempts, as I said, but they're either pretty much repeats of this one or not. I would put it up, but I was like halfway through Facebook, and I used desktop capture, so I didn't want to really be, doing all that at the same time. Anyway, this is the Twin Ogron in the Highmaul raid. So anyway, thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.